Okay, welcome to the Agile Metrics podcast, new and returning listeners. Today, we're taking a trip into the dynamic world of Agile Metrics with the brilliant Louis-Philippe Carignan. In this episode, we will dive deep into the answers of metrics, asking the fundamental question, why do we measure in the first place? Interesting, right? Why do we measure these things? Why do we need these metrics? So now Louis is going to share his invaluable insights, drawing from his extensive experience as a Prokanban trainer and a professional Scrum trainer. So we're going to go from the controversial role of velocity, to the practical application of metrics in agile environments. We will explore it all. Discover the metrics that have sparked conversations and the challenges of introducing them into organizations firsthand. And then join us as Louis also unravels the toughest moments in his journey of metrics implementation and offers sage advice to us agile enthusiasts looking to revolutionize our approach. So what am I saying to you now? Stay tuned till the end for Louis's final words of wisdom, empowering Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, team leads, team managers, development managers on how to navigate the realms of agility, effectiveness, and efficiency with confidence. Also, find out at the end of this when you can actually catch Louis on his next training classes and how you can connect with him directly. So don't miss out. Tune in now for an episode packed with actionable insights and expert guidance. So grab your beverage, grab your pen, grab your paper, and get ready to dive in. Welcome to the Agile Metrics podcast with Tammy. Welcome to the Agile Metrics podcast.
Thank you for having me, Tammy.
Thank you. I hope you loved that intro. I hope you liked it.
Wow, awesome. Pretty awesome. I'm just going to steal that one day from you, I think.
Okay, that's fantastic. So Louis, so introduce yourself to the listeners. Tell us, who are you? Who's Louis?
Yeah, in a nutshell, I believe I graduated in IT at the start of the millennia. And I did about maybe 5 years as a developer where I stumbled upon Agile. Agile was brand new in 2004, 2003. And somewhere around 2010, I was so involved in Agile that I submitted my application to be a professional Scrum trainer and did a lot of Scrum training for a couple of years. And around 2015, I believe, Tammy, I had 5 minutes of humility in all of my career. And that 5 minutes paid off. Where I told myself, I don't know anything about Kanban. It should be time that I get trained and really know what Kanban is. And everybody was pointing me to somebody called Daniel Vacanti. So I grabbed Daniel's book. And from that point on, I invited Dan to train me with Kanban. I'm going to say the proper way. And he really planted the seed or a passion in me about flow metrics, Kanban, seeing flow. And a natural step with me and him was to see how we could apply this to Scrum. Because for me, it wasn't a one or the other, but it became one and the other. Together. And from that point on, I think that I'm going to still keep my story about it's revolutionizing Scrum, because with those flow metric, we're getting a brand new conversation. And being a pro Kanban trainer, it helps me to have those conversations with people outside of the Scrum world.
It's very true. Wow, that's powerful. I like what you said. That, because I once delivered a paper in a particular organization I was working, and I titled it "Can Scrum and Kanban play in the same playground?" Because at that point there was that idea, like you said, people assume either you do Scrum or you do Kanban. But it's very interesting. The previous Scrum guide actually said Scrum is a framework within which you can. So I actually laid the groundwork for you to think of Scrum as a container framework. You can actually put practices in there. Once they don't invalidate the Scrum idea, Scrum is fine. It just, that's what, like I was telling someone the other day, you have refinement session as a complementary practice. It's not the Scrum practice, but they just realized it helps. So it's called complementary. Fantastic. Okay.
Yes.
So let me see. Let me look at my question. So the idea of velocity. What do you think about velocity as a metric?
I believe it's a metric or agile practice or technique that is now ready to go to the Agile Museum. I'm going to call it that way. I think we've moved past that practice. Maybe it was a good first generation practice when we were doing some agile stuff at the beginning. but things have moved on, I would say, with the writings of, I'm going to say again, the books of Daniel Vacanti and the whole Kanban community of pushing flow metrics. I think it's more than time that we turn the page on velocity and go for something better. Maybe in the last few years, I'm going to say even maybe the last 10 years, there was a lot of criticism around velocity, but nobody was really saying we should use this instead.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that flow metrics is answering that question. I believe that a lot of people were leaning on the no estimate movement or hashtag, but it wasn't giving us a date for, when will it be done, or how can we track stuff day per day. I find the flow metrics a way much better approach or framework to track our work.
Yeah, very true, very true. Because, speaking of velocity, I worked in a particular organization some years ago where at the end of every sprint, you submitted a sprint report. It's not too bad, high level, what you intended to do, how many story reports are completed, then what you intended to do, if you achieved the objective, your sprint goal. If you didn't, explain why. If you did, fine. Then what do you plan to do next sprint? Then one day the PMO called me and said, hey, your team has a lower velocity than that team. Can you explain why? And I was like, wait, hold on. Are you aware that the velocity is a team? It's a team, the points are based on the team's experience and knowledge and their comfort with everything. So in other words, it's the team. You can't compare two teams, one. And in its best state, velocity it's meant to be as a planning metric, not a performance metric. And it's a team looking at themselves to go, this is what we think we can based on yesterday's weather. And she's like, no, you have to compare the team. And I was like, I leaned over and I was like, do you know it can be gained? All we have to do is just double our estimates and we're twice as productive. And when I said that to her, I could see her eyes and her brain just suddenly light up like, oh my God, what do we do next? So now you mentioned, and I think I like the idea of the Agile Museum. I'm going to use that. Okay, so you mentioned velocity going to the Agile Museum. So if we succeed in locking it in there eventually, what metrics do you suggest? Because I think what I've also realized in my practice is that there are times where you go into an organization and they hold on to a practice, not because they believe it's the best, but maybe because they have nothing that's given to them as an alternative. So it's like we've built all our management, measurements, and performance rating on this single thing. So now someone like me comes in and says, don't do that. And they go, what do we do? So what do you suggest? What would you say they should use instead?
Yeah, and you bring a good point. People kind of settle into that whole velocity, or I'm going to say traditional agile stuff that has been around maybe for now 10, 15 years. And change is hard. People will have to get trained on a new set of metrics and new conversation at the team level, up the way to the portfolio level. So it will be an effort for that change. But from my perspective is that cost of change brings a lot more benefits than sticking around with the old way of using metrics. So going back to your question, what kind of metrics are you using now? It's mostly the ensemble or the foursome of those 4 flow metrics. And I'm really trapped into that. I don't know why, but now that I always track age, cycle time, throughput, and WIP, I'm stuck in there to have all kinds of different conversation. Either at there you go.
Show me your WIP limits. Yeah.
And I would even make a new T-shirt called "Show Me the Age" or "Show Me Your Age" based on your SLE or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's a new system, but I'm confident that in like 6 years from now, 2030, we will be using that across the board. It's not going to be velocity anymore, tracking remaining time, remaining hours. That's just not going to be that anymore.
Yeah, it's very true. And when you said that, I just remember that in an organization I worked in, when you finish the sprint, they would look back at your estimates and ask questions why you didn't get the estimate right. And when I got there, I was like, are you aware that an estimate is in real terms a bad guess? But you're punishing me for doing a bad guess. That is a bad guess. So, okay, so very powerful. So you mentioned throughput, WIP, work in progress limits.
Yes.
Cycle time, and then age.
And the age.
Very powerful.
And to your audience, this is going to be my confession. I rarely check the WIP limits of my column now. I'm much more addicted to watching the age of work items. That's much more powerful. And when I say work items, I'm not just at the story level, but if I'm involved at higher levels, I'll also track the age. And that brings a much more powerful conversation with the PMO, management, even higher than, tracking hours, remaining hours.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, these metrics, they help to answer the age-old question we all love so much, which is they call into a meeting and they go, "Dear Agile coach, when will this be done?"
And there's a great book about that written by Daniel Vacanti.
Carries the same name. Yeah. So now my question is this. So I have a question here for you. It says, what metrics have you used and what has the reception been? So you've come to an organization, you see them, they're really stoked and high on velocity. Which one have you introduced? What was the reception like? How did you navigate the choppy waters, so to speak?
It's always a confrontational conversation if the customer is not ready or is not asking me this. So when I'm brought in where my skills as a Kanban / flow metric trainer has been accepted or embraced, or they want me for that skill, it's going to be an easier conversation because they've met the limit of velocity or they're not getting any value of those practices. So for me, that's easier. But if I go into another organization where I'm just doing Scrum Mastering, Agile coaching, and they're happy with velocity, I might not even bring the conversation about flow metrics because they're happy, they haven't seen any pain points yet. So instead of being confrontational, I just won't have that conversation with them.
Yeah, you raised a very powerful point. In one of the previous podcast episodes, one professional Scrum trainer said something. He said that as a Scrum Master, you're also a coach, and that when you come in, you have to come in with that mindset, which is take them from where they are, appreciate where they are, and then move them progressively forward to where they need to be. And at the right time, you will know when to introduce new stuff. That you can't just walk in and go, "You're doing that? No!" Throw it away and start. It's too great a change. And even in the world of Kanban, we say, start what you do now. So, take it from where they start and then progress them forward. Because in the end, when you look at it, for there to be acceptance, like I told someone something that when you go into the organization and you introduce a change, it's like me driving past you in my car and saying, hop into my car, let's go. You don't know who I am. You don't know where I'm going. You don't know if it's safe. Why would you jump in? So you have to create the groundwork.
The trust.
For someone to go,
yes.
Yeah, for someone to go, okay, I think you know what you're doing. For what other ideas do you have? And then you go, aha. So that's one. And then two, we talk about evolution of practices, right? And that's why I said the museum was very interesting, because when you introduce the right practices, the old ones would die a natural death. And then you go, there you go, into the museum, exhibit 2. And you chuck it in there and everybody just moves along. So that's really powerful. Thank you for that. So one question, in your experience, when have you had the toughest time introducing where you thought, okay, we are at the limit of what velocity can give us? And in my experience as an Agile coach, a trainer, Scrum Master, we need to introduce this. Even if it's at the team level, at portfolio level, when have you had the toughest time doing that?
Oh my God, I'm going to say always, because from my perspective right now, I feel that the industry is starting to change, or starting to see that whole set of metrics and adopting them. So I'm still at the, that there's that curve of people accepting.
The J curve.
Not the J curve. It's the one about the crossing the chasm.
Okay.
And I feel that we're kind of at crossing that chasm of flow metrics being really used in organizations. So I'm going to say in the last 5, 6, 7 years I've been doing this, I had a lot of struggles with flow metrics, but now I'm being brought in and people want that solution now and they're seeing the limits of velocity. So the conversation is easy because they've either dropped velocity and they've got a hard time planning a PI, for example, a program increment. How much epics are we going to take? We don't really know how to do that because we've dropped velocity. So from my perspective and where I am in my market, I feel that we are crossing that chasm of the mainstream agilist will start picking it up.
Yeah, it's very true. Because I'm seeing on LinkedIn, I'm seeing the conversations a bit more regularly now. People are beginning to say, hey, look at this, look at that. I remember, so I do some coaching as well. So one of my coaches, she started a new role, and I was like, let me look at your Jira board. I'm like, okay, yeah, she's talking about velocity. And I said, okay, do you know what? Go into Jira, into the settings, enable days in column. She did it, and then she saw some dots. She's like, oh, what does that mean? And I just said, move your cursor there. 15 days in that column. Oh my God, that's not possible. I was like, exactly. Now you see. She now said, and her reaction was, so she now said, so that means in my daily Scrum, I'll be doing rubbish all the while. Because I discuss every ticket equally weighted. And I'm like, exactly. You can't discuss a 1-day-old ticket with the same emphasis as a 15-day-old ticket. You need something to differentiate the ticket. So have a proper conversation that's productive. And she was like, man. But then her question was, how come nobody ever told me about this? And I was like, well, I'm doing that now. Okay, so you're a trainer, you're a coach. If in one of your classes, right, maybe one of your Prokanban classes or your PSK class, a Scrum Master there, heard what you said and was like, my God, this is the answer to my problems. But now, Louis, how do I introduce this to my team? What would you advise the person?
Maybe the first step is getting trained or getting more knowledge about those practices around flow metrics, because probably that people will challenge you based on their own ideas or mindset or what they've read. So if that Scrum Master should be a little bit more solid. So doing some practice exam on scrum.org or on prokanban.org, reading a couple of books like the books of Daniel Vacanti, watching the channel Drunken Agile. Yes, that's a wonderful channel if you want to have some dogma being broken from the Agile world. Those are gems in there. So yeah, I would look at reading material from the Kanban community, flow metrics, and maybe even taking a class. And once you feel that you're solid, maybe do a diagnostic about what are the pain points that you're trying to solve. Just before saying, hey, I've heard this podcast, I want to apply flow metrics. What is the real problem that you're trying to solve? And talk with the manager of the team first. Because if you get the buy-in of him, well, you've got some alliance or an ally with you to help promote your new practice or approach. So that would be my first couple of steps for a Scrum Master who really digs flow metrics.
Very true, very true. I have a concept. I call it buying political will. So this is my concept. What I mean is, you walk into an organization. I'm usually a contractor consultant. You walk into an organization and you want to make a change, and you know they need the change, but they don't know you enough to trust you. So I always say, find something to win at. Once you win at that thing, it kind of like gives you a platform to then go, to get more victories, we need to include this. And then it's easier because when you go in there and you just say, I need to change this, you're going to be like, who are you? I just started signing your timesheet last week. What do you mean? So that's what I usually do. So because I've learned that over time, I've learned that if you use that way, like you said, when you speak with the manager, it's an easier conversation, because they're like, okay, this guy knows his stuff. So and listeners, let me just tell you this. It doesn't mean it will change immediately. It may just mean you get someone to listen to you. They may go, yeah, that makes sense, but they're like, don't do anything yet. Don't rush it. Dear listeners, don't rush it. Change, like Louis rightly said, change is a bit hard. Nobody likes to change. Nobody likes to be changed. So sometimes you're going to take some time to actually get them. In fact, what I usually do is, if I introduce a practice, in the retrospective, I'll take like 5 minutes to teach about the practice. Yeah, I'm doing that for 2 retrospectives or 3. So when I eventually say on this, we're going to start, everybody's like, yeah, we're tired of it already. Let's just start. Come on. So I've already broken the barrier of resistance because I've answered the questions 4 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and then we start. And take it from me, people, even with that method, you still get some resistance in the process. It's just like you kind of like you stagger the resistance. Let me just put it that way.
Yep. And there's always going to be resistance on new stuff. It's just you gotta just appreciate it that people are like that and take them where they are and take them when they're ready to change and wait for them.
Very true, very true. I have a question here. So this goes very interesting. It always makes me laugh every time I think about it. So I actually added it later. If you had to go back 10 years, if you had a time machine, you walked in and you're like, yeah, go back 10 years. And you met Louise 10 years ago. What advice would you give yourself?
That's a good question, Tammy. That's a really good question. In regards to Scrum and Kanban, it would have been that 5 minutes of humility that I got in 2015. So yeah, if I would have gone back in 2014, maybe one year sooner, have a look at those flow metrics. Yeah, that would have been my advice to myself 10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. So now, people, take it from me. Louise is a Agile coach, Prokanban trainer, professional Scrum trainer. So if he's telling you that he will have told himself 10 years ago to look at flow metrics, if you're not doing that now, start. Take it from me, from my experience. I'm sure Louise echoed the same. It's a game changer. It's like, I don't wear glasses, but imagine if you look at it this way. Imagine someone that was short-sighted, blurry vision, and suddenly wears the right prescription of glasses. The view of everything changes completely. That's what happened to me when I started using flow metrics. Everything changed immediately. I was like, wow. It was almost like I was blind before. Now I can see. I'm telling you. Okay. So finally, or not finally anyway, but so the demographic, the people I'm targeting my podcast to are old Scrum Masters, new Scrum Masters, people that are looking for what to add to their tool belt to be better at what they do. Also, as we know, flow metrics are also useful for team managers, delivery managers, and all that. So now they're all before Louise. What do you tell them? So what do you say? It's almost like a hear ye. If you didn't hear anything today, ensure you hear this.
If you're a manager, you're probably looking maybe for delivery dates to commit to your own customers. Flow metrics will give you that, or more visibility on that, or forecast, or even show your customer that you can't go faster than, I'm going to say things here like 3 stories per week or 1 epic per month. It's going to give you that additional visibility to explain to your customers if there are other businesses in your organization, to have those new conversations. So yeah, if you're at the management level, it will give you more answers to articulate the constraint that your teams or your organization is giving you.
So use flow metrics. So like we mentioned before, cycle time, throughput, the age of your work in progress and your work in progress. Those 4. And then when you think of that, then like I'll use those. But I look at let me show you one example of how I use it. So in the retrospective, I have what I call an objective retrospective. I look at cycle time scatter plot. I look at the outlier at the top. I look at the outlier, so outlier story at the top. And I ask the team, what caused this story to take so long? And what can we do to prevent that from happening another time? Put some actions down. Then look at the outlier at the bottom. And I go, wow, that story took us 2 days. What did we do to make that happen? And what can we keep on doing to see how we can get close to that? And, because when I started doing that, it changed the retro from the, how did you feel? That, but it's more actionable. You're about to say something, sorry.
I totally agree with you. And I like your concept of subjective and objective retrospective. My take would be is that for the last 10, 15 years, we're doing a lot more subjective retrospective. And if you look at, well, that's my experience. If you start looking at throughput for teams that have done a lot of, are we happy? Is it going well? Throughput hasn't changed for 2 years. And we've done a lot of, I'm happy, I like my job. Throughput hasn't changed. Okay, you could argue that HR has less complaints, and I don't have enough data to correlate on that. But from a flow perspective, team is as productive as usual. So let's ask the question, are those retrospectives really useful? So if we're starting to use objective retrospective with flow metrics and charts and analytics, it could bring some new conversation and maybe even change throughput or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing I like that you said was we don't have data to support it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just because enough of the finger in the air, I think it's good. No, there's data. Use the data. Because you cannot track. I mean, I told someone something. I said, it's subjective retrospective. Person was like, oh, it doesn't know it's good. I said, no. Look at this. A 2-week sprint is 10 working days, right? This developer has 8 days of that ace. Then on day 9, the code breaks. Something happens. At the retro, when you ask him, how was your sprint? You most likely would say, it was terrible. When you think of it, only 20% of the sprint was terrible. But the immediacy bias is there. Now, another developer that's had the opposite, 8 horrible days, and then finally it starts to work on day 9. He would say the sprint was ace. And you're like, what? You tanked the sprint for 80% of the sprint, but immediacy bias. So why would you depend on that as a measure of progress? Mm-hmm. And like you said, the actual thing we're paid for is to deliver working software. And the throughput isn't changing. So it's like a football team that is at the bottom of the league saying, yeah, we're happy. You're losing. You're losing and you're happy. What do you mean? You should not be and you see, like I was telling someone, I look at metrics as a mirror. It tells you where you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about a mirror is it gives you actionable information. You wear a shirt, and let's say you want the shirt inside out. Look at the mirror, it causes you to do something. Metrics must cause you to do something. You know, it's not just, oh, I feel good. No, you look at it, oh, I didn't comb my hair well enough. You comb it. Oh, I'm wearing my shirt the other way around. It tells you something, you know? So yeah. Okay, so now, shameless plug. Now, Louis is a trainer, right? And as you can tell, he knows his stuff. So he's a professional Scrum trainer, professional Kanban trainer. So Louis, can you tell our listeners, when are your next classes?
And I always have classes almost every month. So check out my schedule on scrum.org, or if you're looking for Kanban classes, I'm also on prokanban.org.
Okay, so you will see his class, his link and all that, class dates and all that will be in the description of the podcast. So look in there. Like I said, Louis is an ace trainer, so you would not go wrong attending his classes. Take it from me. You know, he sounds very gentle, but he knows his stuff. As you can see, the nuggets he's dropped today, he really does know his stuff. So, and then also you are on LinkedIn, right? So I'll put your LinkedIn link also in the description of the podcast as well. So they can reach out. So reach out to Louise, tell him he listens to the podcast, ask what you can learn, you know, and all that. So yeah, it's been fantastic. And you see, the thing about, I think one thing I've come to realize since starting the podcast is, like, you know, we talk about Shuhari, right? And one thing I realized is that as the Scrum Master progresses, you then realize that really Scrum is fantastic as a container, but you have to put a lot of other stuff in there to make it work perfectly. Mm-hmm. You learn, like I said at one of my first podcasts, I mentioned Bruce Lee going from Wing Chun to Jeet Kune Do. His journey, he learned judo, karate, and then he put different things, and then he formed a fighting style that combines the best. Because you realized, you know, your context will determine what you need. You can't go, it's like me going to battle and saying, all I need is a knife. If the other guy brings out a gun, I'm done. So you have to go, and that's why when you look at the army guys, they carry different things because you don't know what you need until you get there. You know, you're about to say something, sorry.
Oh, I'm excited to see the day where there's always a Agile is Dead blog article every now and then. I haven't seen a Flow Metrics is dead article, and I can't wait. I know we'll be too popular when that article will come out.
Yeah, I know, I know. And when I say that agile is dead thing, one thing that makes me laugh is this. I've seen someone actually say it properly, agile is dead, long live agility. And the idea that I always tell people in my class is this. If you studied the history, this conversation started in the 1930s that we record. From the Shewhart cycle, plan, do, check, adjust, lean startup. Oh, it's been going on for a while. The recent umbrella is agile. But we've been looking for, from Deming, from Taylorism, we're looking for ways to solve productivity in the workplace. But it has morphed into knowledge work. And now it came from manufacturing to knowledge work, back from knowledge work now into manufacturing and all phases of work. But we are continuously looking for ways to do stuff better. So people have to realize that we can't say we're agile and then be stuck in one practice and say this is the only way to do it. It's a misnomer. You can't say you're agile and also stuck.
Yep.
You have to be adaptable.
And things like ChatGPT are changing our ways of working as Agilists, as Scrum Masters. So DevOps changed that too, because we're delivering so fast now, and all of those techniques or approaches are changing our ways of working. So velocity is going to die somewhere in there, and Flow Metrics will take its place. It's just going to get part of the process somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. And then the time will come when you tell someone velocity and they go, what's that? And you go, there was a time when they go, no, it's not possible. That doesn't make any sense. And we go, yeah, that's evolution.
Yep. Grandpa was using that, but not anymore.
It's like when you tell kids that there was old TV that used to open like that. And they go, what do you mean? Or the old TV that had 8 channels. Go, what do you mean? Channels? Channels? Oh, wow. So thank you very much, Philippe. I'm always saying Philippe, sorry. Thank you very much, Louis. Thank you so very much. It's been fantastic having this conversation. I've been looking forward to this conversation, really. Because, thank you. I had a conversation with Neil Kelleck about the no estimates movement. And after that conversation, before that conversation, I was thinking about, I need someone to talk about flow metrics and to kick this velocity thing down the road to let people know. Because, like I said, I've been to organizations where they are choking on velocity. We need to get the velocity up. We need to get it down. And I'm thinking, this isn't it. Because in the end, when you look at it, like I told someone something, when you buy your iPhone, you have never once considered, did they use Scrum or Kanban? Is that they're effective? So if you're looking for effective, efficient, and reliable teams, you need the right metrics to drive because like you said something that is a bit senior for the listeners now, but I'll just mention it. You mentioned SLE, right? And you mentioned, and SLEs are a team gets a particular point where the team commits itself to delivering every certain number of days. But that's a level of maturity. And you look at teams, how many teams have gotten there? But because they're focused on the wrong thing. So, and that's where we need to get teams to, where okay, as a team, because when you look at it, like I told someone, I know Prokanban, Kanban method, or Kanban University, there's a conversation around the use of expedite. So I use expedite in a very funny way. If I tell you, you will laugh your head off. So whenever we do expedite and then we go through and everybody's like, yeah, that was quick, I just smile. At the retro, I ask the question, so that ticket took us 2 days. Yeah, it was expedite. Okay, so what can we do? What did we do to make it 2 days that we can continue doing now? So to me, it's like, aha, you fell into my trap, because you're going to replicate that practice in every other ticket going forward. Because my aim for expedite is there's something I learned from Elon Musk. He would say, introduce a process, onboard the process, delete the process. So when I introduce expedite and we get a ticket through, I pull the practices that made us work that way and make it mainstream. So the need for expedite then disappears, because we then work as efficiently as possible. And there's no need for expedite anymore. I can confidently say it will take 3 days. So if 3 days is fine, bring it in, and we just run it through with every other ticket.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, so I know there's a different conversation, but like I said, it's about, like I was telling someone, the different approaches are people's attempt at solving the problem. And that's what we have to remember. We're all trying to solve the same problem. We might have different approaches. It doesn't mean anyone is right or wrong. As a practitioner, you learn from the two. You understand the spirit behind each one, and then you apply it as needed.
Well said. Well said.
Okay. So thank you so very much. I really appreciate it, and thank you for coming on, me interrupting your afternoon and all that. So thank you so very much. So now that wraps up another enlightening episode of the Agile Metrics podcast with Louise. But the journey doesn't end here. So subscribe now to stay plugged into the pulse of Agile Metrics and never miss out on future conversations with industry experts. As you can see, I delivered another industry expert today. So subscribe to keep listening as I keep bringing them in to give us some good nuggets about how to apply agile ways of thinking, agile ways of working into the world of work. So keep your agile game strong and your metrics even sharper than ever by tuning into the Agile Metrics podcast. Exciting discussions and valuable insights and transformation ideas await you. So what am I saying? Hit that subscribe button right now. Buckle up for an exhilarating ride through the ever-evolving landscape of agility. Your next breakthrough moment could just be one episode away. So stay tuned, stay agile, and keep thriving with the Agile Metrics podcast. Thank you very much and have a fantastic evening, afternoon, or morning. Cheers. Bye.